Naruto is an omega, and it only really further makes sense when you look at the dynamics of Gaara and Rock Lee in relationship to him and his second gender. I explained why Naruto was an omega in the last one, but this one's specifically about how Gaara's an alpha in that relationship, and it makes sense, so just hear me out. Gaara is an alpha because he fits the category in BL tropes as your second male love interest, you know, the one that doesn't get the guy. If you look at the tuning exams, you cannot tell me that is not an alpha crashing out in the presence of a dominant omega. Dominant omegas make alphas go crazy. Gaara just finished watching him fight and mop the floor with another alpha, so his like subtle pheromones that only really like strong alphas could probably sense at this time are wafting around, and he has a small run-in with him physically right before he fights Sasuke, so it's like even more powerful. So that's why he ultimately like crashes out at the freaking tuning exams, because he's surrounded by dominant omega pheromones that only really he can sense as another spirit holder, because they form this really beautiful relationship. The way he's like, you gotta give up on Sasuke, he's not good for you, stop chasing him around, think about your future. That's second love interest behavior, because they're always the ones trying to tell you to be better while you're running around chasing the toxic one. No, you're like, Gaara can't be an omega because omegas are often persecuted. He's persecuted because he holds a spirit. It don't matter what your second gender is in that world. If you're carrying a spirit, bad, bad, bad. Also why he's the love interest for Naruto, because he thinks they're like perfectly matched together. He's a spirit holder, Naruto's a spirit holder. They both understand the persecution. He's an alpha so he can take care of Naruto. Politically, he understands once he becomes Kazekage that they can't be together, especially if Naruto wants to be Hokage, so he has to step back. Looking at Rock Lee is a recessive omega, like a real one. I said Naruto was a fake recessive omega because all his dominant traits have been sealed inside of him. Rock Lee is an actual recessive omega. Recessive omegas often don't present looking like omegas. They have like really irregular heat cycles. They don't produce like the qualities of a quote unquote good omega. Because his whole like only being able to do taijutsu so gives recessive omega, but also like the desire to be better and to want to be better when everybody's telling him that he's basically useless. He meets Naruto and they both think they're recessive omegas, and Naruto sees Rock Lee do all these great things, and he's like, so recessive omegas can be powerful, they can be strong, and that's also why Sasuke's in his feelings about getting whooped by a recessive omega, because he's prejudiced, because he's an alpha, and everybody his whole life has told him he's the greatest that has ever lived, so when he gets thwarted by a recessive omega, he's like has to reevaluate his whole life structure. So real quick about Rock Lee's presentation as a recessive omega. Recessive omegas have like irregular heat cycles, and tell me his drunk fighting doesn't sound or even look like freaking a recessive omega going into heat irregularly and using his pheromones in a way that he didn't expect to use them, especially against an alpha that probably, you know, the bone one, he's giving alpha, especially when they're in a fight and all of his pheromones are going to be around, because you know Orochimaru only really wants the bodies of like dominant presenting alphas. So a recessive omega around a dominant presenting alpha, no hopes that he's not going to go into heat and start tripping out. So that drunk fighting he does, that is recessive omega heat if ever I've seen it. That's why Rock Lee is a recessive omega. Also, Might Guy is a beta because only a beta growing up in an omegaverse society could see any value in a recessive omega, because they have no idea what's going on pheromonally. They're not part of that second gender world, really. Those are my takes on Rock Lee and Gaara, and I think they're sound. I think they're real sound. I also have takes on how Naruto got his first heat cycle and how Kakashi presents in his second gender, especially with his family dynamics, and I also have a whole thing about Naruto's family dynamics. So if you're interested in any of those ones, I can ramble and rant about this forever.